So hello and thanks for joining this webinar. Yeah, let's wait a minute for everyone to join. While we are waiting actually for everyone to join, let's see where everyone is joining from. Where I joined from this webinar, so I'm calling in from Zagreb, from Croatia. So how about you? It would be great if you could share your location, so basically the city that you're coming from, the country you're coming from. Okay, in any case, while we are waiting for these responses, just a couple of announcements related to this webinar. So first of all, we are recording the webinar, and you'll be able actually to watch the recording of this webinar after the webinar has ended, and I'll explain actually how to access this recording at the end of the webinar. And also you'll be able to download this presentation deck of this webinar, and also at the end of the webinar I'll explain how to download and where to download this presentation deck. Okay, good. Yeah, so let's I think that most people have joined now, so I think we can start. So let's start with the webinar. So welcome to this webinar, how to use the documentation toolkit to comply with DORA. My name is 𝗹𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀𝗁, and I'm the main DORA, NIS2 and ISO 27001 expert at 𝗧𝗿. And 𝗧𝗿 is a company that makes compliance easy to understand and simple to use. And this webinar today is streamed through Zoom, through LinkedIn live events, and also through YouTube live. And it will last approximately 45, maybe 55 minutes. And I'll try to make this webinar as interactive as possible, so that you can, ask any questions that you're interested in. And by all means, please do ask questions even during my presentation. So before I start with the Q&A session, and of course I'll have the Q&A session at the end of the webinar so that I can answer any remaining questions. All right, so let's go on with the next slide. So basically, why is this topic important? I mean, documentation is one of the biggest challenges for professionals who are dealing with DORA. And actually, let me share with you one poll that I posted on LinkedIn. So basically, the poll question was, which DORA documents do you find the most difficult to write? Right? And I got something like 40 responses, which is not bad. And interestingly enough, people are actually having most difficulties with documentation for third-party risks. So as you can see, they also have problems with, let's say, cybersecurity and resilience documents, but the biggest challenges are the ones for third-party risk. Okay, so again, going back to my presentation, so obviously there is I would say, a challenge of how to deal with this documentation, and this is something that I'm going to speak about today, and I'll show you this tool, this documentation toolkit that will enable you actually to write these documents in a faster way. Also, basically the thing that I'm going to focus on really today is this tool, this documentation toolkit, which helps you with a couple of things, but one of the most important things is really how to speed up the writing of this documentation. And this webinar today is intended basically for any professionals who are in charge of DORA compliance. So let's say CISOs, so security officers in various financial organizations, but also for consultants who are actually providing their services, consulting their clients within financial organizations. Good. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. This is, I would say, one of the most important points that I wanted to present today, is that this kind of tools or this kind of toolkits should not be only about documentation, because as you will see, complying with DORA requires, I would say, a much more know-how and I would say not expert insight. So basically, this kind of toolkits that you're using for DORA compliance should also be about these things. So of course documentation, but also about expert support, also about the know-how that you're getting, and also the speed by which you're writing these documents. And of course I'll present all of these things in the webinar today. Okay, so okay, I see messages from people joining, and there are some people actually joining the call from actually West Africa, which is great. This is Gambia. Okay, great. So it's also obviously this topic is not only interesting for the Europeans. It seems to be that this is also an international topic that is interesting for other countries as well. Great. Let's go on to the next slide, and this is related. This is an agenda. So I'll go through the agenda, but you can actually let me know through the chat window which of these topics do you find the most interesting, and this will give me an idea on which topics I should focus on the most during the webinar. So simply send me a message through the chat window, and then I'll try to go and spend more time on these specific topics that you actually are interested in. So what I planned, actually I kind of divided the whole webinar in two parts. In the first part I wanted to give you an let's say an overview of the requirements of DORA and related regulatory technical standards. And then in the second part to show you this documentation toolkit and actually how it can help you comply with all of these requirements. So I'll start with these four key chapters that you need to, which organizations need to comply with DORA, and then what are the four key chapters in DORA that you have to comply with. Then these regulatory technical standards, CDRs, these are Commission Delegated Regulations, and CIR, this is the Commission Implementing Regulation. A little bit about 27001 and using it for DORA. And then in the second part of the webinar, what are the three approaches for DORA compliance? Of course, I'll show you in detail 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's DORA toolkit. I'll explain you how this pricing works, which kind of options are available, and basically who is this toolkit for. And at the end, we'll also have this Q&A session. Great, so let's start with the next slide, and this is around which financial organizations need to comply. And basically DORA says that almost the whole financial sector needs to comply, financial sector in the European Union needs to comply with DORA. So, banks, insurance companies, investment companies, basically it goes very widely. So, I mean, if an entity is already registered with some, let's say, financial authority, then typically it would need to comply with DORA as well. So let me actually share the screen with an article which is called "Who Must Comply with the DORA Regulation." Just give me a second. Okay, so here's an article on 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 website which explains in more detail, who needs to comply, and we'll send you now the link to this article that you can open it directly. And just to mention around these links, so if you join this webinar through Zoom or through YouTube, then you will be able to open this link directly, without any, let's say, any complications. However, if you join this webinar through LinkedIn, then for some reason LinkedIn does not allow clickable links during the webinar. So when you share this link during the webinar through LinkedIn, what you can do actually is copy the whole link and then paste it into your browser to actually open the link. Otherwise, you won't be able to click directly this link in LinkedIn. So again, if you're joining through Zoom and through YouTube, then you don't have these limitations. Anyway, so here in this article, you actually have a list of all the financial entities that have to comply with DORA. So basically, if you want to learn more, you can actually open this article as well. Okay, going back to my presentation, there are some exceptions. From this financial world, some entities do not need to comply. So leasing companies, smaller insurance companies, special organizations according to decisions of EU member states, this kind of thing. So basically, these companies do not need to comply. Now, there is, I would say, a further kind of complication on who needs to comply with what. And when you actually read the text of DORA regulation, you see that there are, let's say, 3 different types of financial entities and I would say 3 different approaches or 3 different types of requirements for those financial entities. I kind of term them as normal financial entities and small ones and micro. So let me actually switch to another article on Advisor website just to show you what I mean here. And this is the article called List of Documents Required by DORA Regulation. I will send you also the link to this article now. And when you scroll down, you will see that there is this explanation of these smaller financial organizations. And yeah, these are they're listed here. So these smaller financial organizations, actually they go for this simplified ICT risk management framework. Okay, so if you're a smaller financial organization, then you don't go for, let's say, a regular ICT